Hello everyone, my name is Reed and welcome to Storytime. Today we are going to be reading some pro-revenge stories, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Jerk manager destroyed my childhood game store, so I got him fired. I judge card games from local to world championships. For several games, I was head judge at the world championships. The town I grew up in had a game store. It was run by a husband and a wife, and eventually their kids joined in on the fun. And it was a lot of fun. Every night there would be no tables open, and for bigger tournaments, they would rent out vacant storefronts in the shopping center to fit everyone that would come. Eventually they moved the store to a bigger store, and it would just keep growing. Some that grew up in the area and played at the store eventually had kids of their own, and they played in the store too. It became a tradition. This is the place that you took your kids to their first RPG game, or where you would buy them their first booster packs. The only Friday nights that this store would be empty was if there was a big football game at the high school. The reason the store was so popular was because of the couple. They were never flashy and they treated everyone as if they were the best player in the world. They'd give away free snacks, sodas, booster packs for every little occasion, and sometimes just because. They were more than patient with players, helping them build decks and helping people get better at the games. They also knew and were able to teach every game they sold in the store. I can walk in any day and there would be several RPG groups and rows after rows of people playing all sorts of games. Didn't matter if I bought anything or not, I can stay from open to close and not spend a dime, and they would still treat me like I dropped $1 million. It was Nerdvana. It was also the store where I judged my first event after I got my initial certification. And the husband had me as a judge for almost every event, and he would compensate me half a box of booster packs for the smaller events, up to 2 boxes for bigger ones. For one really big release weekend, he gave me 6 boxes of booster packs and paid me. His wife was equally amazing and loved her nerds, as she affectionately calls us, more than he did. She would bake cakes for birthdays. Every day for the week leading up to Christmas, there would be a tin of cookies always stocked and baked the night before. If people got in a jam and needed a last-minute sitter, they could leave the kids at the store and she would warn the parents she'll watch them, but she'll also teach them collectible card games. I think this is also why the store made so much money. There was a rumor the store actually belonged to her. Life happened, and eventually I ended up living in a city about 3 hours away, and a few years ago, I heard the wife died and the husband couldn't bear being in the store because everything reminded him of her, so someone else was running the store now. I planned on visiting the store, but being 3 hours away, I just couldn't make a casual trip there as a round trip would be about 6 hours. Around the middle of last year, the store announced they were going to host a major qualifying tournament. This generated a lot of buzz. People from all over the region were making plans to travel to it. I thought this would be a great time to visit the store, so I made plans to go. About 2 weeks before the event, I got an email from the publisher asking me to judge the event. I thought this was odd, as for store-level events, the store fields, the judges, and the publisher don't get involved at all. Also, while there are a number of us judges, we're not so numerous that we don't know each other. So I knew there was enough judges in the store's area that should be able to handle the event. I wrote back saying I was hoping to be able to play, but shouldn't there be judges in the area that would be able to do this? They wrote back with there should be, but the store owner said he couldn't get anyone even with the list we sent him. Red flag. They ended the email with, you should talk to the other judges from the area and see if you can get more of the story. I wrote back with, give me a few days to think about it. I immediately started contacting the judges in the area. They all told me the same story. The store was sold to a guy and he was great. It was the manager that was the problem. He was the judge as well, but he thinks he knew better than everyone else. The manager would override obviously correct ruling because he was buddies with the person the judge ruled against. Apparently this also happened at a major regional tournament. Now, one of the reasons I judge instead of play is judges are pretty well compensated. Now anyways. Not just with a booster box and our pay, but we also get some pretty sweet exclusive promos and swag. This jerk manager was hoarding judges' promos for himself. The judges found out about this after they went to a major event, and another judge was talking about a sweet swag he got. The area judges put 2 and 2 together and realized what was going on. After this happened, judges that lived in the area all agreed they wouldn't judge under him ever again. This wasn't the worst of it. He would harass players saying they can't bring any outside food or drinks, tell them they have to buy products if they want to play in the store. He would harass the RPG players, telling them they have no life and they're just wasting valuable time they could be using to play better games. Needless to say, people tried to avoid him. But as the owner would sometimes run the store himself, no one can be sure when the manager from heck would be around. I was livid. This was the store I grew up in. This was the store I learned to play and mastered all my favorite games, and this prick was killing the store. I started to formulate a plan. I wrote to the publisher and told them I'll do it. Also, what was the judge's swag for the event? They wrote back, really grateful as they would have had to pull the event if I didn't agree to do it, and told me everything I would get for judging. They even told me they'll throw something in special for me for helping them out. I wrote back asking for a specific item. I knew that crappy manager would definitely want it and I could use it to trap him. The publisher wrote back saying yes, they would include that in the tournament kit as well. The day of the event, I woke up at the ungodly hour of 5 a.m., got ready, and left the house at 7 a.m. and made the 3-hour drive to my home store. I got there, and there was already a line wrapping around the store. I said hi to people I knew from the store and those I met at larger events. It was like a mini homecoming. I walked in, and the new owner, the manager, and 2 other judges were there and went over the day. The manager started saying that he's a level mid-tier judge and that he was the highest in the area right now, so he would be the head judge for the event, and what he says is final. I told him that I was a higher tier judge. On top of that, I had several advanced roles qualifications. He said I was bullcrapping him until I showed him my certification. He said he's still head judge because he was the manager of the store and people in the store respect his authority. I had to stifle a laugh. Then I told him before I start, I would like my judge's swag. Now, normally I get this at the end of the event because I don't want to carry it around all day. But given this guy's record, I wanted to give this guy as little chance as possible to steal what was owed to me. He started hemming and hawing and said he hasn't pulled the kit yet. I told him to pull it, open it, and give me my swag, or I would be walking away and I'd tell the publisher and this tournament would be invalidated. The owner tried to reason with me, but I was firm. I hated doing this to the owner. He hasn't done anything wrong. From what I heard, he was trying to continue the traditions and practices the original owners established. But I knew I needed to be a jerk to save this store's community from the manager. The manager finally came out and gave me my swag. I looked over it, and I knew this wasn't everything that was promised to me. And I said as much. Then I pulled the email from the publisher that listed everything I was supposed to receive, including the special swag. The manager said he couldn't find it at all, and the owner begged me to wait until the end of the event so he could make it right. I stood firm and demanded my stuff. I listed everything, and this time I also listed the special item I requested from the publisher. The manager went pale. The owner looked at the manager and said, "You said you got that when you judged at the big event a few months ago." I pulled up the email where I requested the item and where the publisher said it would be included and showed it to the owner. The owner exploded. He demanded to see the entire packing list for the kit, and sure enough, my promised item was in there. Then I told the owner everything the other area judges told me, and the owner got redder and redder. Finally, I told the owner and manager that unless I get the items I was promised by the publisher, I would call the police and report the theft. Then walk out and make sure everyone outside knew what happened. The owner demanded the manager give me what was owed to me. He walked back and brought out everything that was listed in the email, plus the special item that was promised to me. The owner then fired the manager and apologized to me profusely for what had just happened and asked me to please judge. I agreed, started the tournament, and apparently it was the best ran tournament the store had since the change of ownership. No one walked away complaining, all the rulings were fair, and it even ended early. When I got home, I sent an email to the publisher with the tournament report, as well as an explanation as to what had happened. I also sent a long email apologizing to the owner for my crappy behavior. The owner wrote back saying he understood why I did it and he was actually grateful I was able to help him see the truth. The fallout. The jerk manager was stripped of his judge certification. Also, the guys he tried to help cheat were given bans from the game. The owner hired one of the area judges to manage the store, and it's slowly going back to what it was before the reign of the jerk manager. In the grand scheme of things, this wasn't some huge injustice that was righted, but this store is like family to me, and you don't mess with my family. I'm just glad that the manager and the owner weren't swapped in this story, because that would have made things a lot more difficult. Better be able to do what you say. Not to me, but my brother was the one to enact this revenge. He works on the assembly line of a well-known company. Soon learns that a lot of employees were either transferred or quit from this position over the year. He would soon learn it was because of a fellow worker stationed with him. Let's call him Richard. Richard has been working in this position for over 20 years. Was, apparently, a high school dropout, and this was also the only work he managed to find. As the years went on, people who worked with Richard seemed to get promotions to more difficult tasks that required further education in the field, and it seemed Richard was not liking that at all. Richard began making life difficult for those who had to work at the same station as him, even going as far as to take credit for their work and shifting the blame of his faulty products to them since he had been there for so many years and knows what he is doing. Then along comes my brother. He had a basic grasp of what the job entailed, having done the basic stuff in high school. It took him a little while, but eventually he worked his way to be on the same position as Richard and was soon producing the same output and quality as Richard. Naturally, Richard began to take credit for more and more of my brother's work. HR eventually got involved after a complication between the two, when numbers presented indicated that my brother had faults in almost all of his work and that Richard had somehow managed to produce much more than the employee average. Going on stating, "I can do the work of two of us and produce a quality product. This guy's brother should not be here and save you all a lot of money." Naturally, my brother was frustrated. Cameras could not prove that either were at fault for producing faulty products. Brother got a verbal warning and both left. My brother went and spoke to the site manager about this issue. Big surprise to those who were not I. They know, but they were good friends through school. They both talked and the revenge was soon planned. After the manager went to HR and checked statements made from Richard, they enacted their revenge. Being near Christmas break, orders were low, so if faulty products were made, they could easily be remade and not affect the schedule. Perfect time to act. My brother had time off built with the company, so he used it. The site manager then went up to Richard, informing him that my brother will no longer be working with him. Richard's slight smile apparently took a look of disgust when the manager informed him that he would be working at the station by himself and that he could not let their required numbers drop. That did not sit well with Richard, and they both went to HR. Richard was yelling that it was unfair and unprofessional that he had to work alone and yet had to do so much work. Then the manager brought out a file containing various statements about how he was good at his job and how effective he was. Apparently, the manager's response was, "You said you could do it, and if it does save us money, then would you not think you would get some financial benefit out of it too?" Richard took the bait of extra income and left in a huff. Needless to say, over the next 2 days the numbers were not met, even with the majority of products that were deemed faulty and could not be used. This time the manager called a meeting with higher-ups, HR, and Richard. Richard tried to defend his actions, but with all his statements and the recent evidence of his skill level, he was let go. Brother came back to work, new guy replaced Richard, and eventually the quantity and quality of products were back to the required levels. Like the manager had said, Richard would not have to work with him anymore. If you're going to talk a big game like Richard, be sure you can play it. It would have been nice if, the managers and higher-ups could have caught on to this situation a little bit sooner, but I'm glad the justice that Richard deserved was finally delivered, and he was let go. That's all the stories we have for today. I hope you enjoyed your time here. If you liked what you heard, subscribe for more content like this daily. Thank you so much for listening, and have an amazing day.